Hi, welcome to Wistone Starter Series Illustrator. Illustrator is a vector graphic tool. It lets you illustrate vector shapes. Once you open Illustrator, it will look very similar to Photoshop or any other Adobe app when you open it for the first time. So let's start with a preset. I'm going to open the common document that you can see right here. When you click on it, it's going to open up in Adobe Illustrator interface. We already have it. Let's close all of these things that we don't need. So I'm going to use Control minus to zoom out. You can use Control plus to zoom in. One of the major advantages of working with Illustrator is that you can use artboards in it. So in your toolbar, you can see the artboard tool right here. When you click on it, the artboard is selected. Now you can move this artboard around. You can also duplicate the artboard. So if you copy this and if you paste it, you are going to duplicate the artboard right here. So you have artboard number 1 and artboard number 2 right here. The whole idea of having artboards is that if you're creating a series of designs, if you are creating a magazine, or if you are creating the UI of an app, there will be multiple screens inside it. To manage all the screens within one project, an artboard is a very interesting tool to use. So currently we don't need this, so I'm going to select this and delete it. You can see the main toolbar here. You can see the menu options. You can see all the property window and all the other panels that you need in design right here on the right side of your interface. And one of the things that you need to understand when you're working with Illustrator is that you're working with vector graphics. So the size of your document doesn't mean much, because whatever you're making in vector graphics, you can scale it up in any size that you want when you're done with it as well. Let's start learning the drawing tools in here. Right, so I'm going to click on the rectangle tool right here. So we will start with making a vector shape. So I'm going to draw a box right here. Now you can see that on top you can see the fill color is white and the stroke color is black. Let's change this to something a little more brighter. So we have the fill color into this cyan, light cyan color, and the stroke color is black. Let's increase the stroke to maybe 4 pixels right now so that we can clearly see what we are illustrating. We have this right now. Let's duplicate this. So Control C on your keyboard to copy, Control V to paste it. I'm going to put it right here. So right now we have a shape like this. So send it back. You can right click on this and you can click on Arrange and click Send Backward. So this layer is going to be behind the shape that we just created. So we have 2 shapes like this which we created using the rectangle tool. Now what we are going to use is another interesting and very important tool in Illustrator, which is the pen tool. You might have used pen tool in Photoshop. It works the same way. But let's try that in Illustrator. So we're going to click on the pen tool right here, and we will fill this gap. So I'm going to click on here, click another point here, click one more point here, bring it here and close that loop. So we created one shape on top of our main shape here like this. It is sitting and it's closing that shape. Let's do the same thing once again for this area. So let's start the anchor here. Let's come down to this point. Let's create a point here. Let's create a point here. And when you're coming to close the loop, you will see a circle appear next to your pen tool. You can close it. Right now we have closed the shape and it looks like a box right now. What we will do is we'll continue drawing a couple of more things here. So I want to create a flap, right? So I'm going to go to this point here. I'll create a shape like this. Come right to this middle area, create a flap here, and we close that shape also. So we have this right now. Let's do the same thing here. So I'm just basically taking the pen tool, clicking, and closing that. So we have done that. So currently you can see that this is on top. So as we discussed earlier, you can right click this, arrange and send to back. It goes behind it. So it sits like this. We have a box with the flaps on. Now the thing that we might notice is that the strokes are not correct. The strokes are basically not aligning, right? So what we can do is we can actually play with the stroke options here. So if you select the whole piece by dragging and selecting it, you can go to the stroke options, click on it, and you can change the parameters here. So right now the stroke is aligned to the middle of it. If you want the stroke to be completely inside, you can do that. Now you can see that the strokes are aligning. Everything is actually inside. You can select this again, go to stroke. You can change a lot of interesting things here. You can reduce the stroke width, options in stroke. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely remove the stroke from here. So I'll go to this and I will choose that I don't need a stroke value. I'm going to change it to none. So there are no strokes in this box. Now the problem is that we are not able to see the depth of this material, right? So we're going to add some materials or differences in this, and that's also very, very easy. So I'm going to select this particular box in here. I'll change the fill color. So if you come to the right side, you can see the fill control right here. I'm going to choose this, and I might switch to a palette, and I'll make it a little darker because there is definitely going to be shadows there. So it is going to look a little darker here. I'm going to select this one now, and I will do the same here, maybe a different or maybe a slightly darker shade of this. So we can see there is a little bit of depth that you can see right now in those shapes. Now there is no difference between these things, so we might have to work on this as well. So I'm going to select this. I'll go to the fill color again. I'll make it a little darker, right? So we can maybe work a little to the side. So we have created the dark here. So there needs to be a little bit of darkness here as well. So let's choose this. We will change the fill slightly a darker shade of this here. So now with just basic shapes, we created a 3D illusion here. We created a depth, we created shades and everything. Good. Let's try another fill option here. So instead of doing a single color here, you can always apply a gradient as well. So if you go to fill right here, you can see there are different options of fill which is available here. You can change this to a gradient if you want. So if you come here, you can see that there is a gradient option right here. So choose that. It's gradient. It's a blend of two different colors. So if you click on gradient options, you can control the gradient in the way that you want. So reduce the opacity of this a bit so that the light is very light. Okay, so we created this shape out of this. Let's move on to a different technique, a slightly different technique to create a shape, right? So let's close all of these and delete or remove this. What we are going to do is we are going to use a very interesting feature, again a very, very popular feature in Illustrator called the shape builder or the path builder. So what it does is that it will create combinations or subtractions of shapes to create new shapes out of it. Select a rounded rectangle this time. Let's draw a rounded rectangle right here. So we have a rounded rectangle. We have these corner pins which will control the corner radius of the rectangle that we are drawing. So I want the rectangle to look somewhat like this. Now what I want is, I don't want the entire ellipse there. I just want half of it. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use a different shape to cut a portion out of our main shape. So I'm going to move it like this, and I'm going to keep it here. What I'm going to use is, I'm going to use this rectangle to cut a shape out of this ellipse right here. I'm going to select both these shapes, and on your right side you can see the pathfinder options. You can either combine two shapes together or you can minus what is on the front. So this is what we are going to use. So when you click on it, you will get this shape. The box is subtracted from the ellipse. So let's make a handle very quickly here. So I'm going to select the rectangle tool. I will draw a rectangle right here like this. So we have a rectangle. I don't need a fill in here. So I'm going to change it to no fill, but I need a stroke. So I'll change this to let's say brown stroke right here. We need the stroke to be a little bigger. So let's increase the stroke a little bit. I need the corners to be round, so we will do this. So we have this shape right now. Now since this is a vector shape, this is actually a stroke, just a stroke and not a shape, we will not be directly able to edit this shape. To do that, we need to convert this into a full-fledged vector shape. So to do that, it's fairly easy. We will select the object that we have, go to object here and click on expand. So what it will do is, it will convert everything that it is there into a fill. So when you click OK, this becomes an object. Now you will not be able to control the stroke because it became an object already. You can now work on editing this. So we will use the same technique here. So I'm going to draw a shape like this. Select both the shapes together, and I will use the subtract tool to get this shape out of this. So I'm going to move it right in here, and I'll move it inside. So to do that, right click here again, arrange and send to back. Now we have an interesting umbrella shape. just created using the Boolean operators or the pathfinder options in Illustrator. Now, I hope you got a fair understanding of how these shapes work in here, right? Let me show you one last very interesting feature that is introduced in Illustrator, and we will close this. So let's go on to a rectangle tool. Let's select a rectangle like this and make it rounded. So let's create a rounded rectangle like this. Let's create one more shape here. We'll select both of these shapes and do the subtraction once again. So now we have a shape like this. It actually looks pretty interesting. I'm just going to go in a little closer. Let's select these points. I want to make it a little rounded again. So I'm going to just go in and make some modifications here. I'm going to convert this into a 3D shape, and it's really easy to do. So I'm going to go to Effect, 3D and Materials, click on Revolve here. So you can immediately see that it created a lathe-like object here, but the problem what happened here is that it's revolving in the other direction. So to do this, it's very easy. You can see the 3D and Materials window popping up. Just change the offset direction from left to right, and we have a cup which is there. Now I'm going to change the axis to isometric right, so we can see this a little clearly. We can choose any material that you want from here and apply it on the object. So let's go with something like cardboard, right? So I'm going to just apply that material right here. So we have a cardboard material on this. You can adjust the lighting here as well. So you can make it diffuse, you can make it top to left, or maybe make it right. You can also turn on the shadows. So right now the shadow is going in behind the object. You can actually make it below the object, so it actually sits more realistically like this. If you click on this button, it will render this in high quality. So if you click on this, the shape that we have it is going to be rendered in the highest possible quality, and you will get a very good looking 3D object from here. You can see how good this looks right now. It's amazing. I hope this gives you a quick start with Illustrator, and it's a fun tool to play with. You can create a lot of graphics out of it. I will see you with the next video. Until then, bye.